Kellyanne Conway loves her alternative facts, and she continues to love to make them up on the spot to justify what President Trump is actually doing. Now, an example of that is where she was on recently talking with MSNBC's Chris Matthews. Now, what she was doing when she was having that conversation is she was defending Donald Trump's Muslim ban by using Barack Obama's so-called his own travel ban in response to what she called the Bowling Green Massacre.
In this case, he is calling for extreme vetting from 7 countries that President Obama first identified. Right. All he did was take his lead. He didn't even add to the list. Yeah. It's the 7 countries that were previously identified by President Obama as being high risk, as being states that either harbor, train, or export terrorism. These are nations very narrowly prescribed and also temporary.
Sure.
I bet there was very little coverage. I bet it's brand new information to people that President Obama had a 6-month ban on the Iraqi refugee program after 2 Iraqis came here to this country, were radicalized, and they were the masterminds behind the Bowling Green Massacre. I mean, most people don't know that because it didn't get covered.
Most people don't know that because it didn't get covered. Bowling Green Massacre. Now, man, that sounds awful. Why didn't it get covered, Kellyanne? Oh, right. It's because it never happened. Oops. Now, what the hell is she talking about? What is the Bowling Green Massacre? Or what is this 2 Iraqis that did this horrible thing in Kentucky? Well, the Washington Post explains. Conway was likely referring to 2 Iraqi citizens living in Bowling Green. Now, these citizens were arrested in 2011 and eventually sentenced to federal prison for attempting to send weapons and money to al-Qaeda in Iraq for the purpose of killing U.S. soldiers. Now, this is according to a statement from the Justice Department. Now, the men were Mohammed Sharif Hamadi, and he was sentenced to life in federal prison, where there's Wa'ad Ramadan Alwan, who was sentenced to 31 to 40 years in federal prison, followed by a life term of supervised release. Both men pleaded guilty to federal terrorism charges. Well, holy shit. That's actually very, very serious, and a super serious sentence. Great. Justice was served. They found these guys who were trying to send weapons to to people who were attacking our soldiers. Great. Well, now what does this have to do with Bowling Green? Well, why is this called a Bowling Green Massacre? Well, I'll get to that. Now, here's what the Justice Department said about this case in a January 29th, 2013 statement. Hamadi and Alwan both admitted in FBI interviews that followed waiver of their Miranda rights to participation in the purported material support operations in Kentucky, and both provided the FBI details of their prior involvement in insurgent activities while living in Iraq. Both men believed their activities in Kentucky were supported AQI. Alwan admits participating in IED attacks against U.S. soldiers in Iraq, and Hamadi admitted to participating to 10 to 11 IED attacks, as well as shooting at a U.S. soldier in an observation tower. So look, these guys were terrible people. These were bad guys, right? And I'm glad we found them. And I'm glad that they're in prison. Look, the system works, right? That system works. Now, of course, there are more details on how they were found living in Kentucky, since obviously they were not caught, and that, of course, is kind of the crux of Kellyanne's argument. Oh, if only we had caught them before they came in. Now, how did they find these 2 gentlemen? Now, court documents filed in this case revealed that the Bowling Green office of the FBI's Louisville division had initiated an investigation of Alwan, in which they used something called a confidential human source. The CHS met with Alwan and recorded their meetings and conversations beginning of August 2010. The CHS represented to Alwan that he was working with a group to ship money and weapons to Mujahideen in Iraq. From September 2010 to May of 2011, Alwan participated in 10 separate operations to send weapons and money that he believed were destined for terrorists in Iraq. Obviously, they weren't actually going to terrorists in Iraq. I'm kind of surprised that I might actually have to tell people. But since it was an operation chartered by the FBI, they weren't actually sending those weapons out. So no terrorists got weapons. But anyway, again, between October 2010 and January 2011, Alwan drew diagrams of multiple types of IEDs and instructed the CHS how to make them, In January 2011, Alwyn recruited Hamadi, a fellow Iraqi national living in Bowling Green, to assist in these material support operations. Now, beginning in January 2011 and continuing until his arrest in late May of 2011, Hamadi participated with Alwan in helping load money and weapons that he believed were destined for terrorists in Iraq. So, again, there's your context. That's how they found them. A great investigation into the FBI, from the FBI into these guys. They did their job. Great. Now, how does this relate to Kellyanne Conway? Well, it relates to her, to what happened after the arrests of these two men. Now, Conway reiterated claims from President Trump that his refugee policy is similar to what President Obama did in 2011, when he banned visas for refugees from Iraq for 6 months. Conway said it was, and you heard it, brand new information to people that Obama enacted a 6-month ban on the Iraqi refugee program. Breitbart also reported earlier this week that Obama suspended the Iraqi refugee program for 6 months over terrorism fears in 2011. Now, of course, the problem is that that's actually not what happened, and both Breitbart, Trump, and Kellyanne Conway were coming up with alternative facts, things that were actually not true. The Obama administration told the Post that there was actually never a point when Iraqi resettlement was stopped or banned. In the aftermath of the arrest of the two Iraqis living in Kentucky, the Obama administration instead imposed more extensive background checks on Iraqi refugees, so-called extreme vetting. That's what it is. Now, of course, the new screening procedures did end up creating a dramatic slowdown in visa approvals. Since you have these new standards, looking at these people, it's actually going to take longer to vet them. And so it's going to seem like, oh, you banned all these people from coming in. There's nobody coming in. There's nobody coming in from Iraq. You banned them. Actually, no, it's just so slow that maybe you could call it an effective ban because of how slow they were being processed, but it never was a ban. People continued to get approved, albeit at a much, much slower pace. In fact, it slowed visas to a crawl. Again, when you do more screening, it's going to take time. So yes, Obama was doing extreme vetting of refugees from Iraq for a period of 6 months, not banning them, as Kellyanne Conway claims. So see, what this is that this is an example of playing politics, using alternative facts to justify their ban on certain members of a certain religion. It is a Muslim ban. Remember, Donald Trump said, it is a complete shutdown of Muslims coming from the Middle East, from these countries, until we can figure out what the hell is going on. Complete shutdown. It's a Muslim ban. He said it himself. Not only that, but he also said we would bring in the Christians. The Christians, great. Let's shut down the Muslims coming from these countries, but the Christians are okay. Syrian Christians, come on over. That is a religious test on immigration. And then shutting down the refugee program indefinitely was another part of his executive order. Trying to compare this, as Kellyanne Conway has, to what Obama did is like comparing apples to chihuahuas. They are not the same. One was actually a way of increasing national security after an event which prompted them to go, oh, maybe we should take a look at this. Maybe we should look at these people and screen them and vet them a little bit better. The other one is just to ban people that they don't like. That's the truth of the matter. These are facts, not alternative facts. Hey everybody, thanks for watching this video. If you want to see more like this, please hit the subscribe button below. And if you want to support truly independent, non-corporate media, go to our Patreon page and become a patron. Patreon.com/TYTNation.